Well, what we got is a John Deere 333E skid loader. When I do work on these, I don't see a lot of information on them. There's nothing really on YouTube, so I thought I'd make a video on it. Going to be got to pull the engine. So the cooling pack's coming out. The hydrostat's obviously getting loosened up back there. Here's your HVAC box. This was mounted in this general area right here. You had some bolts here, and then you unbolt it from the hood, which is laying on the floor right there, and all that comes out. So, and the DPF's off, obviously. So this wiring harness originally was connected up here. Sorry for the crappy camera angles. Then you're going to take the fan guard off, because the main mounting bolts for this cooling pack, well, you can't even see them. There's going to be one there, and then there's one inside, so that fan will come out too. This bracket comes off. These fuel lines come off, and then cap and plug them, lay them off to the side. The condenser will come out, and it'll lay off to the side as well. But the radiator will stay in here. The hydraulic oil cooler, charge air cooler, and then once I get some slack in this AC line, I'll move the HVAC box. And then you can see under here, this has the reversing fan, so there are a couple lines that come off on the reversing fan, and a wiring harness that's down there that runs underneath the cooling pack. So when you first go to take the cooling pack off, it kind of looks like a bear, but it's not too terrible. So we'll get that off, and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so back on the 333E, I've got that line and that line disconnected and capped from the hydraulic cooler. These two are for the reversing fan. Not all skid loaders will have a reversing fan. This harness will stay with the cooling pack. Okay, so these plugs go into the reversing fan for the solenoids. This is your hydraulic temperature sensor, which is, you'll go underneath. You'll just run. You'll feel it. Just run down behind the battery, base of the tank, and then there's another plug that'll be right there for the lift pump. I can't remember what Service Advisor says, but I take the fuel filter with it, and because the lift pump's right there, so I'll disconnect the lines from the engine. There's your supply, and then up there's your return. So take them off, cap them, and then that will come out with the cooling pack. There's one mounting bolt. There's the other. And then you have the third one, which is right there. So you might have to dig it out if your machine looks like mine. These are those lines we disconnected over here. Assuming that's a K-strain line. But that one will disconnect, and then as you lift it, it will just snake its way out of that rubber grommet. And then there is I don't know if you can see it, I don't think so, but there is a bracket underneath there. So as you lift, and just make sure that the elbow doesn't get caught and stretch, because this will have to come up kind of high, because you have to clear the fill for the fuel tank. So you see this plastic part, all this will have to come up to clear the neck. I think we already covered. I ended up just taking the line excuse me, off the condenser, and I'll just take the condenser out with it, because this system wasn't charged anyways. It had a leak previous. I know everybody says that, but this one actually did. So EPA's watching. And I'll just drape it over there, and I'll get a blue plug for that, keep the dirt out. But it's got lifting points here and there, and then yeah, that, I don't think I'm missing anything there. And then just pull it up, and it'll be out of your way. And oh, that is the only coolant elbow on the bottom, because you see it junctions down there. That'll all just come out with it. Just take it off at the engine, and then obviously take your upper radiator hose off from the thermostat housing, and you should be good. So, and the oil fill. You can take the oil fill, or you can just take the bracket right here. It don't matter. So, there it is. Okay, so 333 again. Cooling pack's out. It's on the ground. There'll be a lot back here. You lift the cab. If you're doing this job, you should know how to lift the cab, so there's no reason to show you that really, but there's a bolt for it. Obviously, one on the other side. Pull the nuts off. Now, there it is. You'll have a group of connectors. Those will all come off. There is this connector here goes to the oil pressure sensor, which is located on the block right back there. That will stay on the machine harness. A couple clamps. That bolts for that clamp. That bolt holds some grounds. Starter wires. You'll just have the power signal wire, and then this battery lug is on the end of it. Motor mount, another motor mount. You have 2 bolts, 21 millimeter heads. That's bolt the hydrostat flange to the flywheel housing, and then there's a bracket. The bracket that hydrostat's sitting on, there's 2 bolts up underneath there. So if I can get the flashlight here, because you really gotta, you pretty much put this matting down. The old Harbor Freight floor puzzle piece floor matting. Lay on your stomach and reach your arm down and under there. 15 millimeter heads on the bolts, I believe. Use a universal, because it's weird. You'll figure it out. You can get your hand down there. You're like, wow, that's not a good place for bolts. So kind of take some time. Be patient with it. Some of those things are really glued in there, but they'll come out eventually. Yeah. I think that's about it as far as that. I got one right here. So that's the engine mount bolt, and underneath there, so you don't have to put a wrench on that. You can just give an impact, zip it off. And then we'll climb out of here. Come around. And drain. You see right there. There's take that hose off. That's the remote oil drain. I need to take that ground off. That's just for the battery clamp. Obviously, fuel lines. I pointed that out, but if you haven't taken them off, there they are again. And then you probably, if you somehow don't end up disconnecting your AC system, you can just pull your bolts and obviously your belt, take the compressor and lay it off, but I have them disconnected. The harness here that will stay there, that is your alternator, the power to your alternator, the ground for your alternator. AC compressor clutch, and then this is your fuel and water indicator, water and fuel indicator. There's your block heater. Disconnect that. There's a view of the starter. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're doing this job, you probably ought to know what a signal wire and what a power wire is. And yeah, I think that's it. I will say this fuel tank here, there just isn't a lot of room. It doesn't really do it justice when you're looking at where that flywheel housing that mount is, and how that fuel tank is shaped. Is this engine you really have to get it at a good angle and out. Otherwise you'll be fighting that fuel tank, and it's plastic, so you can really gouge into it or break it. You know, get it good. You know, the motor's got some weight. You know, rig up with a good chain fall along with your chains. That way you can, you know, adjust. Or because the problem you'll have, not so much taking it out but going back in, is the bar hits. So I'm sure Deere has some mounts, but I've never used them. I don't know if there is or not, but I've just used straps and chain falls and come-alongs and a crane. And yeah, it'll come out. It might be a bear, but it'll come out. So let's get after it. So got her out. Got her on the stand, just using a Harbor Freight. I think it's 1,000 or 2,000 pound collapsible engine stand. Seems to hold it just fine. Pull the rear structure, obviously. Maybe you can figure out how to do it with it on. I'm not smart enough to, so I just pulled it. The engine has been overhauled once recently, like really recently by me, and it ran for about a minute till it didn't, and that's because that valve disappeared, and I'm pretty sure I know where it went, because there's one keeper and there's the other one. So I didn't put the head together, but the guy that did said he's going to stand behind it, so we'll get her apart and just see how gruesome it looks and play that game. And I don't foresee it being a complete headache, but the customer's not super happy about the ordeal because he really wants his machine back, but he understands that, you know, it kind of is what it is. So he's not out any money, but I'm out time and maybe a little money. We'll see how this all goes. I've never had an overhaul blow up on me. This one is a first. Not like I'm some salty overhaul mechanic, but I've done a few. Maybe I just haven't done enough. Maybe that was the deal. So when I first did this on 333, I noticed I got on YouTube just wasn't a lot of information on these things, and I just wonder, because this is kind of, yeah, it's actually a Yanmar engine. I'm sure most people are aware. Yeah, manufactured by Yanmar. And the parts are really hard to find. Basically, everything came through Deere. You could not get, when this originally started, you could get a short block, I think, but it was like 3 months out. And you couldn't get an overhaul kit, but you could buy the pistons and the gasket separate. And Deere's screwy, because so if you buy a piston, it'll come with the rings on it, but it doesn't come with a pin, and it doesn't come with the clips for the wrist pin. So just be advised, if you're overhauling one of these and they tell you there's no overhaul kits, then check the stock of pistons, and then make sure that you're gonna have to get, you know, all the other little parts. It doesn't come together as a nice little kit, but you can piece it out. So actually, I think that's one of the gasket kits. Yeah, that is one of the gasket kits. I can't remember if that's the upper or the lower, but or that might be the master. I don't have a box for the pistons or anything else laying around. I think I probably threw them out already. But yeah, like I said, just didn't find a lot of information on it. I'll probably make another video of actually overhauling it and give out some specs and stuff. Just because big manufacturers irritate me with the way they treat their service information, but I guess that's their business, and that's why they make a lot of money, and that's why I don't. So yeah, that's kind of it. The original reason this thing got overhauled has got 6,000 hours on it, 6,000 and some change, and cracked piston. So when you got a DPF on a machine and it's just rolling coal and missing, well, you got some issues. So yeah, it really got hot, because that's the DPF there, roasted it out. I was I couldn't tell if that was DPF or the DOC. No, that is the DOC. I lied. So it roasted out that DOC and then the DPFs. You know, not super great either. So, anyways, that's how you do it. So I get her stripped down and get everything sent off to the machine shop, and I guess till next time.